right, Raghu, welcome and thank you for taking this conversation on. Just a simple intent, Raghu, with this conversation, just to know what have been your thoughts of late, what are ideas that are coming up. A lot of us who are plugged into your work, I felt it would be nice to get a sense of how you're looking at what's evolving. In some of the conversations we've been having, thought I could bring some of those in so that others can also plug into those. So just let me start with what thoughts, what questions are you holding right now as things are unfolding in the world and in our ecosystem and life?
See, one of the things that is obviously of a lot of concern for me is the way human greed is getting exposed today. Na? The, the, the focus that business seems to have on making money out of human misery rather than business being a part of society that serves a greater purpose, a dharmic purpose, and so on. That's becoming more and more and more blatant. Yeah, with the amount of, it's obvious to everybody how the pharma companies are dealing with this crisis. Yeah, the amount of misinformation around, the panic that gets created so that you're driven towards certain kinds of buying behavior. Right? That whole process is actually very disconcerting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is one of the things that's bothering me. Yeah, and what seems to be happening today is this. I think it's natural. Anytime anxiety and fear takes over, that part of the mind which is the self-preserving, the security-oriented mind seems to dominate, nah? Right? And that is the discourse today. It's being fed in different ways by different aspects of society.
True. Wondering if we're stuck in this cycle, it seems almost self-perpetuating. Way out, do you see it at the level of the individual? Do you see it at some systemic moral power inviting businesses to self-regulate? Like, where do you see uh, a way out of the stuckness?
See, any change like this, of any kind, has to start from the human psyche. I mean, the systems we have created today are all systems that have come out of the human psyche. And what sustains them is the way human beings reinforce some of these things. Right? So, obviously, the shift or the change has to happen in the human psyche. Yeah. And the dominant thought, yeah, is always going to find it difficult to make a shift because of so many factors. Now, the consensus that gets created, the fear that people have of standing out in a crowd, and so on. See, earlier, I have a feeling people who had a dissident point of view, and so on, had a slightly easier time in the sense that, if you went back a couple of 100 years, you could take a boat out of England and say, I'm going to go out to a new world. Yeah. It's another matter that when you went out into the new world, you went as a colonizer and not as somebody who's looking for a different way of life. Though I think there were quite a few who did that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, but today there is no other place to go to. Which corner of the world will you go to?
Hmm. Hmm.
Every
Hmm.
corner has been is under the sway of what are so-called civilizational forces.
Hmm.
And today's civilizational underpinning is very deeply influenced by colonizing. Yeah,
Hmm.
the
Hmm. Hmm.
colonizing mind seems to be the dominant uh, idea of the world,
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
valorizing the outcomes uh, of just taking, right, of going somewhere, legitimizing your extortionist or exploitative processes has become the dominant theme of today,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So one of the things that I've been concerned with is what does this word take away mean? Yeah, you
Hmm.
find it
Hmm.
everywhere, right?
What's the takeaway? Yeah.
What is the takeaway? And the more I hear this word, the more it epitomizes to me the colonizing process. It legitimizes the idea that I can come into a space and only be focused on what I can take for myself, right? Yeah, the word take has a very different psychological orientation towards a space compared to words like contribute to,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
replenish, participate in,
Hmm.
co
Hmm.
create,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? And the reality is that whatever it is that we're doing in the world, we are a part of a whole. So we are participating in something,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Now, if all of us are participating in taking away, how does the earth regenerate?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Right? How does the earth replenish?
Right.
Right? And to me, the word take away is fundamentally not just self centered but antagonistic.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Because if you push it a little bit, then if you and I are in a space and there are limited resources, and if I'm focusing on taking away and you're focusing on taking away, I have to grab as much as I can as quickly as I can and run away.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
do I run to in the world today? Do I take away from you and run into my own little nation, my own little community, my own little family? Take away and do what? Right? And once I've
Sangraha,
taken
like
away
take away
from
and
you,
accumulate.
yeah, once I've taken away from you, am I going to come back to take away more? Yeah, because the underlying colonizing principle simply seems to be take and take and take and take. And
Hmm. Hmm.
if you resist taking, my taking, I'm going to use force.
Right.
I'm going to whitewash your brain in one way or the other.
And force, Raghu, you mean both physical and psychological
Of
force, right?
course,
Like it's not just physical, but also
of course.
behavioral nudges and framing things in certain ways. And yeah, yeah.
Right. So when you look at it like this, na, this takeaway mind, which seems to be such a critical word today, I think is a very dangerous word. Yeah, because see, it cuts at the roots of mutuality and responsibility. And I think the idea of rights is also part of the universe of the word of takeaway. Yeah, because if you look at it, if the idea of rights is not fundamentally anchored on responsibilities, the orientation is not towards the collective, the orientation is not towards replenishment, it's towards self aggrandizement.
Towards the individual, like human rights, like
Right.
individual.
That's right. And is there anything like the individual?
An interconnected being, right? A part of
Yeah,
a
we are
web
all
of life.
interconnected beings.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So the word takeaway, with its kind of link with ideas of an individual, rights, and so on, is basically the seeds of mutual antagonism between people and not mutual respect, not a movement towards responsibility for what is happening around,
Hmm. Hmm.
but simply saying, I must live and I must live well,
Yeah, yeah.
which, even if you look at it a little bit in depth, is such a stupid idea.
That only I must live well.
I must live well. Yeah, it's only because there have been resources available till now that one could keep taking without worrying about replenishment, which is basically the colonizing idea. That one could get away with this kind of a mind. Yeah, going forward, if I approach the world with a takeaway mind, it's very clear that there's going to be nothing to take.
We'll bottom out, we'll empty
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it's already bottoming out, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. The Earth's resources are, they've been doing this calculation for some time, no? The way we're consuming the Earth's resources, how long does it take in a year,
To
right?
replenish those, yeah.
Not to
How
replenish,
long does it take
not
to
to replenish,
replenish
but
what we use in
how
a
much
year?
resources are we using in a year right now? Let's say if it is X, currently, how much time are we taking to use up a certain amount of this thing? And I think it is 3 months or something like that. It's been constantly coming down,
Hmm, hmm,
right? And the rate at which this is coming down, I think will be comparable to the rate at which we are creating waste.
Right,
So
because
instead of,
that's the
yeah, so instead of replenishing, right? I have a feeling this takeaway mind doesn't understand how deeply waste is part of the current culture, right? Yeah. See, if I take something away from you, I don't have to worry about what you're feeling. I don't have to worry about my relationship with you. Nothing, right? Somebody sits, let's say, in a training space or a workshop, right? Now, the workshop can work only if everybody is contributing. Okay, learning cannot happen just with one individual.
right.
And yet, this takeaway mindset, what does it do? It says, unless you entertain me and you give me what I think I need from this, yeah, I'm not going to value you. And if somebody sitting next to me has something of value to give, I probably wouldn't even open my mind out to these possibilities. So I'm sitting there
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
context that can only happen as a collective, but I'm sitting
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
with only one objective:
Just to take.
take and go into another space.
You're right.
And this is just a very small example of what is happening everywhere.
And in multiple contexts also, Raghu, I would say in the domain of knowledge, relationships, finances, material resources,
That's right.
uh, seeing it everywhere. But
That's right.
also, Raghu, takeaway also evokes a takeaway, right? So when I look at my own psyche, there are times when I'm operating in mutuality and responsibility. There are times when I encounter a takeaway mindset. Unconsciously, it creeps in. I'm a product of my times. And when I do encounter that, I hold that question of saying, so what does non-cooperation with it look like? Like what, especially in front of somebody you're dealing with who has a takeaway mindset, how does that resistance work? Like how does one resist? How does one deal uh, with this?
See, the moment you are in a context of a takeaway mindset, you're into competition, into antagonism.
Right,
So, what is it that I can evoke from myself at that point of time? I can either refuse to engage with that, yeah, or I have to enter the
hmm,
competition and
hmm.
fight.
Right, right,
I'm only offered these two. I don't think a person who's coming into a context with a takeaway mindset is going to be very ready to sit down and dialogue.
right, right.
Yeah, which is why I was saying, see, earlier I could have said, no, I don't like this, so let me go and create another space where there is a greater mutuality, a
Hmm,
greater
hmm.
sense of responsibility for the environment, and all of that. Today,
Right.
where do I go? Where do I start? Right? So it becomes, I think, a matter of one of deep concern that if this mindset continues, whatever has been the consequence of this mindset, which is your climate crisis, your resource crisis, your nationalism, that the amount of weaponry that we create and so on, right? If people don't see all this and say, hey, there's something wrong with the way we've approached life, we
Hmm,
cannot
hmm,
valorize this,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
right? This takeaway idea cannot be valorized anymore. The takeaway idea has to be seen for what it does to the world and to each other and to ourselves.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Yeah,
hmm,
like I said, now if I'm entering a space with a takeaway mind, how will I experience friendship? How will I experience community? Will I be able to look at nature for the beauty that it holds?
hmm, hmm, hmm.
Will I be looking at it saying, how do I take from it? Right. I have a feeling my entire life will become impoverished at a deep level while I might have a lot materially.
True,
And
true,
isn't that the human condition today?
true, true, true. Yeah, 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 definitely that. Also, I think falsehoods also get perpetuated, right? As a result of the takeaway mind. I'm just wondering when I want to convince people, when I want people to do things the way I want, people start broadcasting untrue ideas or like even in media or other places. We're living in a post-truth world where there is so much. It's becoming harder to discern truth also.
Yeah, but
And I think that is also a product of a mind which is
yeah,
trying to create
I
mischief.
think so. I think so. See, Abhishek, I don't think the issue of truth or untruth is as important as the motivation behind what is being shared. Yeah. So even if what is being shared is true, why is it being shared? And what way is it being shared? Right? Is it being shared for political, uh, grabbing of power? Is it being shared for making money? Right? Yeah. Just
Right.
take this whole thing of the pandemic. Yeah. Maybe let's say more than 50% of the news about it is true. But the way it is shared is so motivated that it is shared in a way that is going to create fear rather
True.
than inform you honestly and enable you to take a decision that is meaningful to you.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I think this whole takeaway mind and the takeaway discourse is fundamentally motivated for self-aggrandizement,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? So if you look at, one of the things that comes to my mind is Desmond Tutu,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And how he would talk about the idea of Ubuntu, right? I think Ubuntu is the exact opposite of takeaway,
Hmm. Hmm.
because the way he describes Ubuntu is to say, I am because you are,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? This I am because you are is a fundamental appreciation of you, is a fundamental valuing of you,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it
Hmm.
is because you are that the world is. It's because you
Hmm.
are that we can all live and we
Hmm.
can celebrate life and so on. Right? To me, the takeaway mindset is, reminding me of Ayn Rand's virtue of selfishness.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Yeah, I must live, I must do what I want to do, period.
Survival. Yeah, just a very world is an unsafe place, hostile place. I must fight. I must survive. I must conquer,
And I must take.
and I must take. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I have to keep taking, I need you. So, to that extent, some sort of altruism is supposed to be part of this whole philosophy.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the mind that is, wanting you to be around is not a
Hmm.
mind that says, I want you to be around because I appreciate you for who you are. It's not a
Hmm.
mind that says, I appreciate you because life is beautiful. It's a mind
Hmm.
that says, I appreciate you for what you can give me.
Hmm. Very utilitarian.
Totally utilitarian.
Right. Right. And just seeking to use and guarding against being used.
Yeah, right?
Raghu, some preoccupation with self, though, would you say is natural, or preoccupation with self itself is also a part of this colonized individualization and
That might be. It might be part of the colonized individualization and so on. I don't think it is natural to man. Yeah. The reason why I believe that is, see, if you look at a lot of the evolutionary psychology and all that that's being talked about now, and they talk about a balance, yeah, between self-centered behavior and altruistic behavior. That this is essential for survival and whatever, and their entire thesis is based on survival,
hmm, hmm.
right? And then I've seen a couple of papers where they use the
They
word
use the word
beauty,
beauty. Hmm,
and then what they describe is sexual attractiveness.
hmm, hmm,
Yeah. So then it got me thinking, saying, why do I appreciate a beautiful song? Why do I
Hmm.
appreciate a
Hmm.
beautiful sculpture or beautiful music? It has no survival value.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
what survival value does it have if you can sing well? But if you can go and hunt better than me, then you have a purpose for a
Hmm.
mate.
Hmm.
This is what we
Hmm.
discussed, na? How
Right.
mates are created and how the genes survive.
Right.
Right? You're being a more powerful hunter has a meaning. But my being a poet or my being somebody who loves beauty,
Hmm.
what survival value does it have?
Doesn't.
I don't know. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So many
Hmm.
people going and watching the Sistine Chapel and Michelangelo's paintings.
Hmm.
What survival value does it have except that it brings money into the coffers because you have to put in money to go into that place
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
watch a piece of art? And yet,
Hmm.
so many people pay to go and watch art,
Right.
right? So, in my understanding, right, and that's what I think yoga is also talking about, there is, in being human, there is something that yearns for beauty. And this yearning for beauty, which I think is essentially human, is looking at something far beyond survival and takeaway and all that.
Hmm.
So, this
Hmm.
takeaway business is at a very basic level.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Get it. And beauty
And
is
then there are
beyond
much
that.
greater,
Yeah.
much more beautiful levels of being human
Yes.
that
Yes.
you and I can appreciate.
Yes. Yes.
Which is why I think fear is induced in you first. Because if fear is induced in you and a takeaway mindset is created in you, then it's commercially extremely useful. It's politically very useful.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
religiously very useful.
Right.
Whereas if I treat that as something all of us can work on together, like for example, if you just stop war today, everybody can be fed and clothed and educated, there's no
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
right? Then that is taken care of. Your mind is then free to pursue beauty, it's to pursue meaning, it pursues something else,
Hmm. Hmm. True. True. True.
right? And I think this is the Ubuntu mind, this is the dharmic mind.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And I think the Ubuntu dharmic mind and the takeaway mind are opposite. They're antagonistic to each other.
Reach. Yeah, and I guess I'm also realizing that fear that is induced has nothing to do necessarily with the external reality, right? It's just a psychological
Abs-
fear introduced. Like people may have enough
That's
to
right.
eat, stay, but still feel insecure because that's being fed, right? Such a
Correct.
psychological thing rather than a material.
Correct.
And
Correct.
security also, therefore, coming from a psychological sense, like there is abundance, there is enoughness around. So there is no need to be petrified or scared of the other or just feel inadequate,
Yeah.
but it's induced, it's
Right.
manufactured almost to
Right. Right.
uh,
And if I induce the fear and I tell you that so and so is the cause of the fear, and I will be your savior,
hmm, hmm,
right? It's such a powerful thing for me because
hmm,
I continuously can keep manipulating you.
hmm, hmm, hmm. Right.
So if you see the world political discourse, whatever, which is now so blatant, it's very clear. You have to continuously tell people how somebody belonging to another party or another religion is the enemy,
Hmm,
and how, unless you subscribe to me, you're not going to be safe,
hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah,
right? The other guy is telling you the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
So this is going round and round.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
happens? You are finally left with anxiety,
Yes, definitely.
right? And whether you believe X or Y or Z, finally, I don't think is the issue. The issue is you're left feeling anxious.
Yes.
And then what happens? You will say that the discourse of acquisition, yeah, the discourse of power and so on is the way to be.
Yeah. 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 That, and also I think just religion, corporations, politics constantly doing that has created a whole generation of people with anxiety, with mental imbalances, because
Of course.
it's being done to them and then they personalize it and think something's wrong with them. Whereas the systems
Absolutely.
around them are constantly doing that to them.
Of course. See
Mm.
what's happened because of the pandemic, na? Isolation between people has gone up tremendously.
Yeah.
The social media has become the major way of uh,
Connecting. Yeah.
creating community. And there are papers after papers after papers talking about how young people going after likes, going after these virtual things, and presenting a picture of themselves which is fundamentally not authentic. What all of these processes are doing to the mind.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
And I think the basis of all of this is the takeaway mind,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
is creating that
Yeah.
atomized individual who then has to take and hold.
Yeah. And becomes an agent of the system, right? Like it's almost the mind, the takeaway mind is viral. Like once you get it,
It is
you
viral.
inflict it and you
It is
start
viral.
spreading it to
Correct.
others and creating, it's fairly viral.
I think that's why the word is going viral. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. And I think that's a good thing to be alert towards. I think wherever it crops up, to be mindful that a deeper paradigm is operating. The word is representing a whole thought process and philosophy, not just the word.
Right.
What's the takeaway?
Right. That's right. The other day I was in a dialogue where all of us are very clearly we've come together for a dialogue. And yet somebody pops up the question, okay, so now that we're at the end of it, what's our takeaways? That's when it hit me saying, hey man, I didn't come in here for a takeaway. I came in here for contribute too. Came
Hmm.
in to this dialogue for participate in.
Contribution, participation, co-creation,
Right.
like you said.
Co-creation, whatever, right? And when this question came up at the end of a fairly involved, fairly, uh, respectful, lot of mutuality, lot of working together, and yet at the end of it, this person sits literally. It was like sitting back and saying, "Oh, so okay, what's my takeaway now?" That's when it hit me that hey, this is very deep because if contributing to was your intention, maybe the language would have been very different. Because it doesn't occur to me at the end of a dialogue. Yeah. See, Abhishek, I don't think I can say at the end of this dialogue, what is my takeaway? Or, you asking me, what is my takeaway? Yeah. At best, we can say, have we made sense to each other? Right? Have we enjoyed this dialogue?
Yeah,
Has
yeah,
it been meaningful?
yeah, yeah,
Right? These are the questions that come to my mind,
hmm,
not what's my takeaway?
yeah, yeah.
Because that seems like a rupture to the space. You and I have created a space,
Hmm.
and then I suddenly say, what's my takeaway?
You reduce it to yeah, and
Yeah. Then what am I doing with you? Am I here only to cheat you finally and make sure I get something out?
hmm,
Whereas we start off by saying, let's dialogue.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the intent there also matters, and not clouding it, but honestly having that intent. And the takeaway mind sometimes can cloud the intent and show something, but have something else going on at the back.
That's right.
Also, true, true.
That's right. I'm sure this came up rather innocently in that dialogue. willing to say that. But the fact that it would come up in a dialogue like that itself shows you how deep this virus
True, true,
is.
true, true. Great. So this is good to know, Raghu. I think we had set an intent to do a conversation around the takeaway mindset. So I guess that's what we have explored. And personally for me, yeah, yeah, it's been interesting to see the layers and layers of this. Like there are so many layers to this. And I think that exploration is what's alive. So thanks for that.
Welcome.